Youngstown, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.
Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of The Mediator with me, your host, Brian West, here to give you the top 8 headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Now, as usual, I give you the top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that made it first, followed by a movie clip, a skit, a trailer, or something that's going on in the community, or maybe some pictures. And then I'll give you the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made it, folks. So let's waste no time. Oh, yeah. Woo! Let's get to it. Story number 1. Tech company gets a $100,000 grant. Warren-based Bright, that's BRITE, gets a $100,000 boost for energy innovators. Again, they get this to support the development of a diverse pipeline of clean energy entrepreneurs in the Cleveland area. Now, this is where the grant came from. Now, according to a local report, Mediator report, the goal of the grant is to ensure at least 40% of the startups participating in Bright's programming are either Black, Indigenous, or female-owned businesses or something. I guess that's what they're all added in. They're female-owned, so they're trying to get everybody in the mix here. Now, the article published August 24th concludes by stating that Bright is the only energy technology entrepreneur program in Ohio, serving more than 600 companies that have created nearly 1,000 jobs and attracted $230 million in investments. Story number 2. What's the gripe about Lordstown Power Plant? According to a report published by WFMJ, residents of Lordstown are not happy with the expansion of a power plant on residential land. That's according to the article. Well, what maybe used to be residential land. That's what's in this report. Now, residents are complaining about loud noises in the construction of a $1.2 billion power plant. Now, according to the report, the company is cutting down trees and making some very, very loud noise. Now, this story was trending at the beginning of the year on WKBN because of zoning disputes. And months later, it's back in the headlines. Now, Lordstown is the centerpiece of the vision of voltage violence. Story number 3, $2 million to YSU. Out of 6 universities, Youngstown State will receive more than $2 million from the Great Minds Fellowship, which is an initiative by Governor Mike DeWine. Now, according to a Mediator report published August 22nd, the program aids students pursuing a degree of certificate in behavioral health fields such as social work, marriage and family therapy, mental health counseling, psychiatric mental health, nursing, and substance abuse addiction counseling /addiction counseling and /psychiatric /mental health. Story number 4, the emergency cruise business. EMS workers have stayed in recent headlines. The latest headline about a fire and EMS merger between Boardman and Canfield has made the most recent headlines. Now, the report goes on to talk about cost. And at the moment, Boardman's fire department received about $700,000 a year from a levy, but that's about $4.4 million short of the $5.1 million to $5.2 million that they spend, according to the report published August 21st by the Mediator. So they're spending a lot of money and not getting enough to take in. Now, a number of local EMS deals are making headlines as cost and available money to spend on these emergency services continue to be the main concern and make headlines. Story number 5. Youngstown residents are in a fight with Sobe, S-O-B-E. It's not the drink, but it's a company, S-O-B-E. Now, nature and energy innovation only seem to mix well when they serve as a comfort for humans. Now, this seems to be the concern with a plant that wants to convert tires into energy. But local Youngstown residents are more concerned about health hazards rather than the company's SOBE's business plans. Now, one story on WFMJ highlights the frustration released at a local meeting that was held in Youngstown. Folks, this story is still developing in a community that is still battling for jobs and a new identity. Big headline. Story number 6. Surplus at Youngstown entertainment facilities. Folks, the Covelli Center and Youngstown Foundation Amphitheater and Weed Park is $15,847 in the black for the second quarter. It's according to some reports. Now, what got this story in is the fact that this was unexpected. The facilities were projected to have a $156,777 loss, according to a report published by the Mediator August 21st. So finally, maybe Youngstown could be seeing some good news. Big headline. Story number 7 and the top 2 local headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, trust me, I do search for good news. So let's get to it. Let's get to these top 2. Could be some good news, folks. Story number 7. Good news about Youngstown violence. Finally got some take a breath of fresh air in Youngstown. Oh, it's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Headed into Nonviolence Week in October for Youngstown. Drug and gun arrests have risen. And violence, folks, has fallen, according to an article published August 20th by the Vindicator. Now, this is good news for Youngstown Mayor Jamel Tito Brown and Police Chief Carl Davis, who decided to bring more law enforcement resources into the city. Violent crimes have dropped from 179 during the second half of 2021 to 109 during the first half of this year. Now, the article goes on to describe some other stats, but these numbers stand out the most. Now, even though local emergency crews and justice officials remain busy, the story is still developing because it's trending. Youngstown is thirsting for some good news. Story number 8. And the top local headline and developing news story that made it this week, folks. I searched and I searched and I searched for good news. Well, it's back down to earth. Here's some more bad news, folks. Another Youngstown education mess. Oh boy, this has been going on for a while. 400 YEA workers walked off the job, and students are having to submit to the online learning environment once again. First there was COVID, then there was superintendents, there was South High School closed, then they did some restructuring, Cheney, East High School all got redistricted. Now once again, something else. Teachers are walking off the job, and kids have to submit to online learning once again. Now, according to one report published August 24th by the Vindicator, the Employment Relations Board alleged that the strikes are unauthorized. That's what they're saying. Now, according to some reports, it appears that the teachers just want better control of what they do on the job. Simply put, they're tired of bad kids. They're tired of coming to the classroom and not getting learners. They're tired of all the leadership changes. They probably just want to teach. Now, for years, Youngstown teachers have been stuck in the middle of political infighting, state control, and consistent board changes with little control over their classrooms, their own classrooms, if you want to be exact. Now, the education mess has been brewing since the early 90s, probably longer than that, when the district decided to start downsizing. The story is still developing. That's why it made it to the top this week, because when you leave out the teachers, you leave out the students, and when you leave out the students, you leave out the future. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local headlines and developing news stories that I made this week. I'll be right back with the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories. So don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 8 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, I was talking to a young entertainer, and I've learned this about working with entertainers, especially young, from different shapes, sizes, colors, creeds, just different people. And this new push for all this weed, recreational weed, marijuana, folks, this stuff is serious. I've had some family members smoking weed, and I don't know what it is about this drug or drugs, period. But people seem to love some weed. Love weed. I mean, they love something about this drug. I'll never forget some years back, I had a girlfriend, hanging out with her. Folks, this stuff is so powerful that mothers have it on their kitchen tables. People are smoking the Buddha. They're getting high. You probably about 90% of Americans right now have done some form of drugs. And if you talk about weed, they get upset. I've never smoked weed in my entire life. I've never even done any types of drugs outside of anything that was prescribed by the doctor. But folks, this weed stuff is serious. It's serious. Singers smoke weed. They say they use it to get inspiration, thoughts, magical feelings. People are going to bat. They would rather smoke weed than even take care of their family. Some people spend their last dime on weed. Some people spend their hard-earned paychecks on weed. And yes, folks, the dope man is making his money. And he's lacing that weed with all types of stuff, folks. And you don't want to accept the fact that you have a problem. But folks, weed is so powerful that it's now on the ballot. CBD oil, I've heard doctors on the radio promising to cure humanity with weed. If you ask the good reverend, he will probably say, some trees, folks, were not meant to be pushed. But folks, people are pushing this weed. I even made a song about it. God is a rainbow. Weed is green. But if you want to be high, then you are a hippie. Woo! Well, folks, let's waste no time. Let's get to it. Story number 1. Japan's radioactive water problem. According to a BBC report, China has retaliated after Japan released treated nuclear water from the Fukushima nuclear plant into the Pacific Ocean. Oh boy. Now the report goes on to highlight how protests soon emerged in the region from Beijing. Now, China is the biggest buyer of seafood from Japan and has stated that it would block all such imports. Now, scientists have confirmed that the water is safe. Now, more than 1 million tons of water stored at the nuclear plant will be discharged over the next 30 years, according to the report. Story number 2. Checking in on the elderly and nursing homes. According to a report in the conversation, that's the new one that I haven't really reported on yet. The conversation, that's a new one. According to this report, most U.S. nursing homes are understaffed and could pose a potentially compromising healthcare problem. So they're saying that because they're understaffed, this could pose a problem for millions of elderly residents. Now, the stats in the report are staggering. They're saying that more than 80% of nursing homes have reported staffing shortages in the beginning of 2023. Now, the report mentions COVID-19 as the main factor which caused the nursing home issue. Story number 3. What is going on in the car industry? Folks, the electric vehicle shift and the push for a greener world has really shaken up the car industry. This story got in after a report in Reuters says that Toyota has halted production at a Czech plant due to parts shortages. Now, according to the report, it was due to a fire at a local supplier. Now, this is the second outage at the plant this year. Now, investors are eyeing car manufacturers as the recent push for a greener future has stories like these trending due to the competitive car market. Story number 4, the housing market is in the headlines. CNN Business says that the U.S. home prices have increased after 5 months of decline. Now, this is data outside of what you may hear from a real estate agent or an appraiser. Now, the article says that prices were pushed up by the stubbornly low inventory of homes on the market, with 1.11 million. They're saying that that's the number of existing homes available. That was the numbers in July, which is down 14.6%. Now, the report is filled with useful data if you want to check it out. Now, the data is showing that some homeowners and sellers and aspiring homeowners are just looking for a better deal. So basically, they're just looking to either sell high, get what they pay for the house, or get some equity. Now, then you have the investors, the people who buy the properties and flip them. Now, everyone in this market is looking for a return, thus keeping the housing market in the headlines. That's why story number 4 made it this week. Well, folks, those are our top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I'll be right back with the top 4, so don't you go anywhere. You're in the Mediator with me, Brian West. I'll be right back. Welcome back. Now it's time to get to the top 4 international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. Folks, I've come to understand this United States thing, especially looking at this new generation of kids and the future. And American kids have got to the point now where like they're pretty much used to everything. It's amazing how they're just coming out the womb and they're prepared for the world, some of them. And some people say they're falling behind, that they're so used to getting free things that they don't know how to work. I've come to learn that maybe that is the case in some areas. But the thing now is that they're saying that this is becoming a state of just laziness, too many computers, not enough men, not enough females. I mean, people are kind of out in the open about their sexuality. And a lot of people are concerned, especially the older generation. They're concerned. And they're concerned about the future of this country. This country that promotes freedom and justice for all has tons of things to do. And I couldn't help but wonder, especially like how it would be if somebody like me just miraculously one day decided that I wanted to take on the mantle and try to not only a superhero, but save the country by running for some type of presidential or seat in office, a councilman, being a politician. And seeing the state that we're in now, I guess we have to ask ourselves at the end of the day, is that how many people in America right now actually understand what is actually taking place in the world, in their community? And the biggest question that seems to be on the other side is, how do some people keep getting voted in? And that's the question. So even if I were to run for any type of office, anybody, the hardest challenge would probably be waking people up, getting them off autopilot, and getting them to understand what's actually at stake. That one moment of laziness, the time that you're losing, one moment out of the books could pretty much cost you the future. That's scary, folks. That's scary. But there is hope in everyone who wants to be a somebody. 'Cause once you see that alpha cracking the whip, getting pissed off because somebody can't meet their quota, it will motivate you to do what needs to be done. Folks, somebody has to be the motivator and somebody has to be the mediator. Woo! Woo! Whee! If it ain't the reverend, if it ain't the boss, it has to come from somewhere. Motivation, folks, is what we need. Let's waste no time. Let's get to it. Story number 5. Child care in America is on the radar. Folks, what do we have to do? Do we have to whoop the children? Do we have to give them money? What do we have to do to enhance their imagination? Do we have to get them to believe in God? What is the solution, the formula? Now, according to a report in Politico, Missouri officials are betting on new government-supported partnerships between businesses and child care providers to launch more care facilities. Now, this story highlights what some states are doing with Access ARP funds. Now, according to the report, insufficient infant toddler child care is costing $122 billion in lost earnings. The report goes on mentioning how several states have set aside mass amounts of funds for child care. Story number 6, income, college, and the price of education. This sport is staying alive. Reports of teacher shortages, strikes, and still the growing issue with cost too much. How do you pay for everything and get a return on your investment, especially when you're investing in yourself? Folks, this story is simple. College is expensive. That's how simple it is. College is expensive, and a lot of kids want a price of what they want, a piece, not just a good price, but they want a piece of fruit off of the tree of knowledge, so that they can make a profit in life, especially with their knowledge. Now, many of these students don't have a job that pays what they owe, and many of them can't afford all of the other expenses that correlate with a higher education. If that makes sense. It means that once everything falls in line, some of them can't pay the bills. Now, how America's education problem will be handled may equal out to some serious deal-making between lenders, institutions, and governments. Some may even be the jobs that you apply for. Story number 7 and the top 2 international headlines and developing news stories that made it this week. Folks, I'm just going to jump right into it and keep the program going because I think I'm headed somewhere this week. I just haven't figured it out. Story number 7. The state, the school, and the church. Ooh, ooh, ooh. In God we trust. Oh my God. God is good. God is Jesus. God is many things. God is God. Who do we follow? What religion? There's so many. Folks, private schools have a standard. They have standards, if you want to be specific. Public schools have a structure, and the church has a foundation. That means God in the flesh. As the story goes, God came to earth, was crucified. And this was what Christians believe. Other religions may believe that it was a prophet. Jesus was just a prophet. But folks, at the moment with the implementation of policy and money, there is a problem. That means that everybody wants a piece of that pie. Now, in some states, the schools are meeting the grades, while in other states, the schools may not be meeting the grades. Then you have special interests. A report from The Guardian says that the rights groups, they're saying that rights groups, get this right, they oppose Texas law that lets chaplains work as school counselors, which is what has this story trending. That means that some people, there's an attack on some basic principles, some basic foundings in these documents. It is proven that the founding fathers of this nation did believe in some form of God. Now, The question of what is constitutional and what isn't comes into play due to separation of church and state. So with the separation of church and states, that means that government must have known something outside of the church, and they must have known something about government business. Now, this is becoming all too common in the field of innocent children being taught without any belief in a creator, but everything else outside of that understanding. Now, in God we trust is the biggest statement that will probably be the deciding factor in this story and in everything we do. Now, the story is gaining steam. Axios has a piece about how state school takeovers are becoming more common, creating so many kids with diverse backgrounds in a school setting. Folks, this story is getting bigger and bigger every week. That's why story number 7 almost made it to the top this week. Big head. Story number 8 and the top international headline and developing news story that made it this week. Ow! Jab! Folks, if you can't pay the bills, why get in the ring? Would you fight for free? Would you do anything for free? Uh-oh. I tell you, sometimes I feel like I'm doing this for free, but I'm doing it for the greater good of the public. Story number 8. American small businesses need you. That's big. They need your money. CNBC says that small business confidence is tanking. Some feel that we're in a recession. The report goes on to explain how confidence in banks and the Biden administration is the reason. After going deeper into the story, it's clear that American small businesses need access to money under easier circumstances outside of limited money rationed by policy and credit score. There's meaning in that phrase or statement. Basically, they need money and they need easy access to money without having to go through credit scores, high interest loans. People need money. Now, simply put, businesses need customers also to pay the bills. The story is still developing as the small business sector has got the trophy this week for the top story, because as a small business myself, I know I cannot survive without that good old mighty dollar. With In God We Trust on it. Well, folks, those are our top 8 local and international headlines and developing news stories that made this week. I hope you got something out of today's program. I always get something out of doing the research. As usual, I'd like to thank all the news outlets, the journalists, the people on the front lines. You deserve all the credit. I'm just the mediator, the man in the middle, navigating your stories for the greater good of the public. If you wanted to show us some support here at Method 8, it does not take much. All you do is visit the website on the screen, buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Well, folks, I am out of here. You can also stop by the store at 5648 Market Street to see my smiling face, 5648 Market Street, Bourbon, Ohio, and either buy something in the store. Well, folks, I am out of here. I'll be back next week. Look through over 200 or more stories just to keep you informed, just in time for Labor Day. I am out of here. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for tuning to The Mediator with me, Brian West. Peace.
Then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is